Welcome to Long and McQuaid's Summer 2021 String Orchestra reading session. My name is Megan Benjafield, and it is my honor to have been asked to walk you through some of the string titles available for this coming season. Before I begin, I think it is important to acknowledge that I am recording from my home, which sits on traditional ancestral land of the Haudenosaunee and Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nations. This land falls under the treaty, the Dish with One Spoon Treaty. And to sort of personalize and not just play lip service, when I began to learn about the three tenets that this treaty are based on, it has changed my approach to how I interact with the land and interact in sort of my general day-to-day life. So the three tenets are very simple in the Dish with One Spoon Treaty, and that is to only take what you need, to always leave enough for others, and to leave the land as you found it, clean and well managed, so that others might enjoy it and thrive from it in the same way you have. And I think that those are wonderful ideas to reflect upon and ways to approach our relationship with the land and each other. So hopefully that gives you a little fodder to think about as we as a nation develop our relationship with the land and its first people. Okay, so a little bit about me. My name is Megan Benjafield. I've been playing violin for well over 40 years. I've been teaching for at least 25 of those 40 years. I had my first job in the Niagara Symphony Summer Music Camp as a camp counselor, and have sort of been educating in various modalities in strings since then. I'm currently teaching in the Hamilton-Wentworth District School Board here in Ontario in an arts program. And before that, I was at Etobicoke School of the Arts with the Toronto District School Board teaching strings and music theatre. I'm a member of the board of directors for the Ontario Strings Association, and in that capacity, I am the professional development portfolio head. So just a little bit about me so you know my context in approaching these pieces. So I'm going to present every piece before I play it for you, and I have a slide per piece that sort of covers these kinds of ideas. A lot of this is really straightforward. I don't need to go through it, but I will just mention down here about the viola part. A lot of the earlier, less advanced string parts have a viola part that is doubled as a third violin or doubled as a second violin. And I think that those are important considerations when choosing repertoire. Is there something for my violas to play, or can my violas get support with another violin part, or maybe I don't have violas and I need to be able to fill that void musically. So I do address the viola part in almost all of these compositions and pieces. Here we go. So first up is Digital Dash. It's by Deborah Baker Monday. It's a 0.5, grade 0.5. It's in D major, it's allegro, it's a 12-bar blues. Interestingly, this is an entirely pizzicato piece, so there's no bows used in it. It does come with an optional piano accompaniment, and the viola and violin two parts are identical. There are also some percussive elements. The kids slap the strings or tap the strings a couple of times, and that, along with the pits and the bluesy feel, makes this a really cool piece. It's the kind of piece that students really get drawn to and enjoy playing. I think it might be slightly higher than its listed 0.5 grade rating. And I think that because there's an F natural in all the parts, and it's not consistently F natural. It's sometimes F natural and sometimes F sharp. So that on the upper strings, that changing first and second fingers, and in the lower strings changing fingerings for the same note can be a bit more challenging than, say, a grade 0.5. However, the fact that they're not using bows does sort of mitigate that level of difficulty, so the 0.5 might be good. Each section does get some soli time with the melody, which is also motivating to students. So without further ado, here we go, Digital Dash by Deborah Baker Monday. I love this opening. It's all open strings, so we play with dynamics in those open strings, which makes it quite easy, but also starts paying attention to detail. Here's that F natural that's just increases the level of difficulty a bit. I wish the cellos and basses were a bit better balanced in this recording. Clearly that's something you would need to work on. Here's that fun little string tap. Often when I look at pieces during reading sessions like this, I think to myself how I would rehearse it, and if there is enough there to rehearse that would keep interest and keep challenging students throughout a rehearsal process. And I think this piece does offer that. So that's Deborah Baker Monday's Digital Dash. The next piece up is called Catch Up If You Can. I forgot to type in if you can in this slide, but it's a grade 0.5 also. It's D major, allegro. It does come with an optional piano accompaniment, and the viola and violin two-part are the same. Now this piece is exceedingly simple. It does introduce some eighth notes, but that's about the level of difficulty we get up to. It's if you've got a 1 octave D major scale in the kids' hands, you can play this almost immediately. And what I like about that is ensemble playing is rarely touched on in method books. So if you're working through a method book, you're sort of monotonously in unison for half a semester with beginners. And this gives us a very early opportunity to get them playing in harmony and get them sort of listening holistically and around the room instead of just focusing on unison. There are a lot of open A's in the first violin part, so if you're worried about some of the more advanced players getting bored, you could challenge them with fourth fingers on the A string. Again, it's a very accessible and easy to perform piece. Catch up if you can. Hear that repeat. So we're here now. So as you can see, for me, for my taste, that one is a little less challenging than the previous one, the Digital Dash. Here we move on to Acidic by Tyler Arcani. This is a grade 1 piece in D major. The tempo marking is aggressively. It has an optional piano accompaniment, and the viola part is somewhat independent. It doubles the violin too, and sometimes doubles the cello, but it is its own part. Here, it's quite an energetic and fun to play little piece. There's some great rhythmic independence between the parts, which creates opportunities for listening to the ensemble and really gaining confidence in holding your own autonomous part. I think I've seen in so many music classrooms in my career, you come to rehearsal to learn other people's parts, not your own part. And I feel like this piece is a great introduction to that philosophy of rehearsing. I think this is a wonderful opportunity to make kids understand that other things are going on in other parts of the orchestra while you're playing your part. Great lesson to learn this early on. So here we go, acidic. Part changes even though the melody is the same, which I really value in terms of keeping the inner parts interested and engaged. Love introducing call and answer there. An opportunity to do some big, long, whole bows and teach about legato and tone color. Like that second violin line there. And just that interplay of the dotted half notes is just something that would be interesting to rehearse and isolate in a rehearsal. Of note, another thing I really like about this piece is that it offers so many opportunities to rehearse beyond just note learning, right? It's a really meaty orchestration that offers all kinds of opportunities to talk about interplay between parts and that kind of thing, so that you're not just learning notes and rhythms. And I think that's another lesson that's great for students to learn very early on, that, I know my part isn't a good enough answer, right? You have to know how your part fits into context, etc. So I'm a big fan of that one, Acidic by Taylor Arcani. Next up is Invicta by Soon He Newbold. And I have to tell you, Soon He Newbold has quickly become one of my favorite educational string composers. So much of her stuff is lyrical and lush and beautifully written. It always sounds slightly more difficult than it is. So it's impressive, show-stopping kind of piece. Not show-stopping, because I think of her as a very sort of melodic and lyrical composer. This one is no exception. It's a grade 1.5, G major. It has two sections, a con effecto and con brio. It does come with an optional piano accompaniment. The viola part is independent. Now, this is important to note, though. It's written for orchestra plus violin soloist. And I've got to tell you, that violin solo part, it says it's 2.5 or 4. I've got to say it's maybe even more difficult than that. It's a really tricky part. It's got left-hand pizzicato and arpeggiated bowings and double stops, and it's a very complex solo part. So you need to really consider who you have playing to do this, because then the orchestral parts really are that 1.5 level. So you couldn't do this in a more advanced class and expect your orchestra to stay engaged and challenged and motivated. It's really quite a simple orchestral part. So it's a very careful balance. I might be inclined to make this a concerto competition piece, or invite a guest senior soloist in, or you've got that one kid who takes private lessons. That might be the kind of scenario you're looking at for this. I do think it's a beautiful, lovely piece, but I do think you need to very carefully manage who you have and whether this is the year that this is worth playing. So here's Invicta. You will notice there's a easier solo part. And I'm not sure that the easier solo part would be as effective as this impressive solo part. Like we're already in 5th position with that solo. You will notice that there is an optional viola part solo, so you could give this to a violist instead of a violinist. So if you don't have the sort of personnel to use that piece, I do highly recommend looking up other of Soon-Hee Newbold's pieces, because she really is quite a successful educational composer. 4 strings. Next up is Venom by Erica Donahoe. This is a grade 1.5 in G major. It's an allegro close to vivace. You could play it quite quickly. There is an optional percussion part, but not an optional piano part, and the viola part is independent. It's very energetic and lively to play. It's really a lot of fun. It does introduce a low first finger with the D sharp. There's lots of sort of opportunities in this piece to work on bow distribution. It's got a lot of sort of the whole bow, half bow, whole bow, half bow sort of motifs, which you could really work effectively on getting kids to use the full bow and then have, like, really think about how they distribute the bow. That's what I would use this piece primarily for. It really is energetic and fun. It's the kind of thing that would really get kids motivated asking for it. I love the vibra slap in there. You'll notice that the percussion part says shaker, but they're using a snare drum in this recording, and I think that's a perfectly reasonable substitute. Here's that low first finger with the D sharp. And a really traditional music quote in there. I talked over it, you might not have heard it. Sorry. Here it is. Look, our violin twos and violas get a solo. So that's Venom by Erica Donahoe. Next up, we have Springer Mountain Morn by Andrew Dabzinaski. This is a grade 2 in G major. It has 2 sections, both based on the same Appalachian fiddle tune. The first is an Andante 3/4 ballad, and the second one is a fiddle style in a swung 4/4 time. There is an optional piano accompaniment, and the viola part is also available in third violin. There's some, in the first ballad section, there's some beautiful counterpoint interplay between sections in the ballad. It almost sounds fugal, and then in the fiddle part, there is a short fugue, but it's a great idea to talk about that. There's great style considerations in the fiddle part for the inner strings, particularly this swung 8th note that's accented on 2 and 4. You'll see what I mean when we get there, but it really is a different stylistic paradigm than your sort of traditional 4/4 time. The bass accompaniment has a really fun slapping the strings, so it's a great way to introduce swing. It's a very beautiful opening ballad. This one is going on my purchase list for this fall, I'll tell you that much. Here we go, Springer Mountain Morning. I will fast forward through.
Hi, my name is Andrew Debczynski.
Debczynski,
and I'd like to
that's
tell you
how
a
I
little bit
pronounce it.
about.
Here we go. Those beautiful open double stops in the cello. Oh. So now I'm going to scroll through that repeat for us. Right here. Now, the transition to the faster tempo is so well done compositionally. We're already fast. Wait, no, we're not. Here. We're already fast. And you don't really know yet. It's a great transition. There. I love that accented accompaniment. I might reverse that bowing myself. Here's the slap. So they pluck a note and then slap the string. Pluck, slap, slap. Love it. Easy double stops. Here's the fugue. Great little number. Springer Mountain Morning. Next up, oh, this is another one of my favorites, Whispers of Spring by Sean O'Loughlin. It's a grade 2, it's in G major, it's a lovely andante 3/4, optional piano part, the viola part is independent. Now this is a gorgeous flowing pastoral feeling piece. This would be a great thing to link up with like Beethoven's Symphony 6, if you wanted to teach that in conjunction with this and talk about what a pastoral is and why they exist. There's like babbling brooks in this, and you could talk about tone color and legato bowing and sound production. It really is just it paints a beautiful picture of sort of a babbling brook in spring. Like it's really, really effective in being a tone poem and a pastoral tone poem. Whispers of Spring by Sean O'Loughlin. And these hairpins. Oh. And I love this syncopated accompaniment pattern that's quite simple, but so effective. gorgeously simple melody that is so beautiful. And then these terraced entrances for the end. I am a big fan of that one. Okay, moving on. We come to Christmas Day, Christmas Night by Carrie Lane Grussell. Carrie Lane Grussell has started to stand out for me quite a bit as a composer or an arranger of note. She seems to, and this is just my impression, I haven't done a lot of research, but she seems to do almost entirely sort of adaptations and arrangements of traditional and classical pieces. I'm not sure that she composes in her own right, but I could be wrong about that. But I find, like, I've done one of her Mozarts, and it's just really well done. It sounds like the original, but is much simplified, but she doesn't lose the essence of the original, which is beautiful. So I would recommend keeping your eye open for her as an arranger. This is grade 2.5. It combines two traditional Christmas carols, I Saw Three Ships and the Sussex Carol. It's in D major and G major, and it goes back and forth between 6/8 and 9/8 time. So it's a great introduction to compound time if you haven't yet introduced that to your classes. It's a great way to work on compound time. There is an optional piano part, and the viola part is available in violin 3. I would say that the left hand in this is actually fairly straightforward. So the level of difficulty for this comes from the compound time and the rhythm, and it also Dr. I think Colleen Richardson, often I once saw a workshop of hers and she talked about protecting the melody. I love that phrase. I think it says something so different than, back off so the melody, it's called protecting the melody. And this piece gives you great opportunities to work on that. So here we go, Christmas Day and Christmas Night. Open string double stops. And what? The violas get a melody? Love that descending violin 2 line. Cellos and bass, so everybody gets a crack at the melody. lovely rolled chord at the end. Who doesn't love playing a rolled chord? Kids love that. All right, next up is Oblivion by Larry Clark. This is also a grade 2.5 in G major. It's very quick tempoed, but the tempi do change quite a bit throughout. There is an optional piano part and the viola part is independent. We're seeing a lot of more viola independence as we get into the higher levels. The left hand on this piece also is quite easy, and so it's the stylistic bow work and the tempos that really create the level of difficulty in here. This is great for developing confidence in the right hand. You really can't pull off this piece without some really strong bow work. Oblivion by Larry Clark. Like lovely digging in at the frog, being in the air. This middle section makes me feel like sort of standard traditional band pieces of this level. So I'm gonna leave that one now because it's basically a sonata allegro. We repeat the opening bit, and that gives you a good feel for that. Larry Clark's Oblivion. Great for strong bowing work. So Remember Me is from that animated Pixar film Coco. It's about Day of the Dead in Mexico, and this is such a beautiful melody, and this is a really well orchestrated version of it. So I really like this version of this this arrangement. It's grade 2.5, it's in G major, it's andante. There is a piano and percussion part. I would say the piano is more optional than the percussion part is, although it would stand alone without the percussion, but it really does add something beautiful to it. The viola part is available as a violin 3. I also, I love any opportunity I can have to have a movie day. So this gives you the opportunity to, show the film so that kids understand the context of the song. Remember Me. Great inner part work here too. Melody in the cello, just gorgeous. Some nice chromaticism to work through. So that's Remember Me from Coco, arranged by James Kazis. I forgot to say that before. The next one is Arirang. It's a traditional Korean folk song. The arranger is Soo Han. This one is a grade 3. It's a slow 3/4 ballad. The tempo marking is longingly. There is a soloist in this. It's pentatonic in nature. The viola part is also available as a violin 3. In the last verse, there's an increased level of difficulty because there's an optional ottava, which could challenge your more advanced players, or if you don't have advanced players, you can still keep it down the octave. There's some good distribution between the parts and the melody, and I always love introducing non-Western or European music in the classroom. I think it's important to start introducing diverse cultures. So this is an opportunity to introduce some Korean folk music. pentatonic scale for themselves. Arirang. Next up is Air for Buenos Aires by Chris Thomas. This is in a grade 3. It's sort of in D major, but I call it B minor, but based on the way it sounds, con decimur in 4/4. This has guitar, violin, and cello solos. The cello solo is written in section. It's like a section lead solo, whereas the guitar and violin solos are written as separate. But I would highly recommend making sure you know you have a cellist who can play this, and I would probably pull that cellist out of the section and put them up front with the other two soloists if that's how you were to stage this. The viola part is independent. It's quite challenging. There's artificial harmonics and advanced bow techniques and position work. It really is a true grade 3, maybe a bit higher. You'll notice in the recording that there's some different uses, like the guitar solo is not always there, and at the very end the violin solo has been replaced with a cello solo. I'm not sure why they chose to do that, if there's a different version out there somewhere. So just bear in mind that what you're hearing isn't what you'll get as a final performance of this if you were to choose it. I really love the Latin ballad sound. It really has that tone and a half in there in different places, the harmonic minor. It's a beautiful piece. Air for Buenos Aires. Again, an opportunity for non-Western music. Although this one written by, anyway. Love these artificial harmonics. Everybody's muted except for the soloists. I don't know how successful these artificial harmonics would be in a school orchestra, but it might be worth introducing them, but also giving students an alternative option. If their harmonic doesn't speak, what do they do? You might want to prepare them for that. Here's where the cello keeps on playing the solo, even though it's written for violin. I feel like that's enough for you to get a feel of that piece. I think it's a beautiful Latin ballad. You do need to, again, consider who might be your soloists and whether you could pull that off with those soloists. And the use of the artificial harmonics is risky. So I would definitely make sure that you give your students options for, if that doesn't speak, what are you going to do? Are you going to stop playing? Are you going to play an alternate note? That kind of thing. Next up, American Quartet. The composer is Dvorak, the arranger is Jay Hoffman. This is a grade 3, G major, 4/4 time. It's an arrangement of themes from Dvorak's American Quartet, and it has an independent viola part. I think that for an educational arrangement, this maintains a lot of the style and feel of the original themes from this quartet. It's quite technical. I might put it more like a grade 3.5 or 4. I actually think it's quite challenging. Which, if you've got some keen and eager kids, is a great thing to have a challenging piece. I'm not going to play a ton of it because it really is just sort of Dvorak's American Quartet, but let's get a feel of it. Would include piano in this. That's me. Even those string crossings are tricky. And these swells with the 16th note runs, quite tricky. It sounds for just 5 parts. It's really very densely orchestrated. Okay, I think that's probably enough of that one to give you a feel for it. You can look it up yourself if you want to hear the rest of it. But it's a really well done orchestration of Dvorak's American Quartet. It gives you lots of opportunity to work on complex bowings and independence of parts. Really, every part is quite independent from each other. So, really nicely done arrangement of themes for American Quartet by Dvorak. Next up is Griot's Dance by Kurt Mosier. Now, this is, he talks about what a griot is in the intro in this video, which I will skip over, but you could take a look if you're interested. But griots were essentially troubadours in Afro-Cuban culture. So if you think about troubadours, being traveling minstrels who tell stories and sing songs and whatnot, this is that. This is grade 3. The foundation of this piece is a clave rhythm. The 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2. So that is infused throughout this piece. There's lots of chromaticism. It does have an independent viola part. There are 2 solo lines for violin and cello, so you have to make sure you've got a good cellist and a good violinist that could play through those. But it's really catchy, and the Afro-Cuban beat makes it feel sort of cooler, less traditional, less classical. It's a lovely piece by Kurt Mosier. Oh, I was going to fast forward.
Hello, Kurt Mosier here. I am in...
Here we go. Now, I'm not sure why the last one was a grade 3 and this is a grade 3. I would say the Dvorak is probably more like a grade 4. That gives you a good idea of this song. I'll fade out a bit. It does go into position, which probably is what puts this up as a grade 3, whereas that American String Quartet does seem to sit more in first. So that could be where the added level of difficulty is here. Okay, so that's Griot's Dance. Really lively, really passionate sort of sounding tune. Next up is Luminosity by Liam Ramsey White. It's a grade 3 in G major. It does have some changing meters, but essentially is vivace. It's got an independent viola part. Now, it makes great use of bell tones, which generally live in the realm of wind players, wind and brass. So string players don't get a lot of opportunity to work on bell tones. So I think that's a great opportunity. This also has artificial harmonics. These ones feel a bit safer because they're a bit more covered. It's a very cinematic sounding, energetic piece. And I keep on thinking about orchestral bowing patterns. Like, it really is an opportunity to work the right arm in terms of style and detailed bowing work. So here's Luminosity by Liam Ramsey White. This one's a bit shorter, so I might play it all. Here's your artificial harmonics, now as bell tones. That accent makes them sort of easier to catch the harmonic. And only the first violins are playing the harmonic, not the seconds. They're just playing a straight harmonic, which also decreases the level of difficulty. I almost feel like I'd want to pair up with the film department at school and say, here's a soundtrack, what can you put to it? And play something behind it. It's so cinematic sounding to me. Luminosity. Next up is themes from Strauss tone poems. These are Richard Strauss, and the arranger is Michael Hopkins. It's grade 3. There are a variety of keys in tempi because it covers several themes. Viola is also offered as violin 3. It covers Thus Spake Zarathustra, Don Juan, Till Eugenspiel, Mary Franks, and Death and Transfiguration. Now, this is a great introduction to Strauss tone poems. If your students have never heard any Strauss, they probably will go, oh, wait a minute, no, I have heard this. And tone poems in general. It's a great way to talk about tone poems. For my taste, I really miss the brass instruments in this. I feel like Strauss is all about the brass, and the fact that they're missing from this arrangement is very noticeable to me. However, I have not been to a single orchestral audition that didn't have one of these pieces on the list. And so in terms of sort of future proofing your students for what might come in their future, this is actually a great introduction to the Strauss tone poems. So I think that it has kind of more educational value than necessarily sort of artistic fulfillment, mostly for me, and that's just my taste, but I really miss the brass in this. I might use it, though, as a way to introduce Strauss and the themes and melodies from Strauss. lyricism. So increasing your students' awareness of changing their finger patterns within a piece is very useful for that. Like that iconic line, worth learning. Now this is 7 minutes long, so I'm not going to play through all of it, but I might try and dip through into a couple of the other themes. Where are we? More till. Death and transfiguration. We're right here. So some lush orchestration there. Let's see what else we can find in here. Gives you a feel for that piece. So that is Themes from Richard Strauss, arranged by Michael Hopkins. Next up is The Wellerman, arranged by Larry Moore. If you have not heard of this song bursting out of TikTok this year, you probably aren't very much on social media. I have not missed this. This has shown up everywhere I go. It's a grade 3 in G major. There are various temperies and feels because it is a theme and variations. There is an optional piano part and an optional percussion part, although the percussion part, I feel like you just need to have them stamp their feet a little bit. Anyway, it totally capitalizes on the popularity of this sea shanty trend on TikTok. It's also a great way to discuss a theme and variations, and it offers the ability for some music analysis in conjunction with the playing. So you could talk about, what does this variation do? What does this variation do? What is different here? How are they doing that? I gotta say, only one of the variations is really hard, so it could be used in a slightly more junior class, and you could skip that one, or you could, work really hard on just the one variation and then, spend less time on the rest of it. And that challenge of that one tricky variation can increase the level of difficulty or the level of ability in your class remarkably. So here's The Wellerman, arranged by Larry Moore. be a great thing to pull in your vocal class at school to sing along with this. Here's my grade 3 variation. Actually, that's probably more grade 2. Might be lovely to talk about halftime feel versus halftime. Great fun, that one. I would say I don't think it's a true 3. Here we go. Would You Be My Neighbor? I did not write in the composer and arrangers of this. My apologies. Let me find that. Fred Rogers is the composer and Larry Moore is the arranger. Larry Moore is the same person who just arranged the Wellerman. This is a completely different style of arrangement. It feels like such a classic pops tune. It feels like a Night of the Proms kind of pops. It's really well done, very familiar and catchy. It's well orchestrated. There's an optional piano part and an optional drum kit part. I think both are actually not optional. You'll hear there's a piano line that you really can't do without. You might want to get a kid play xylophone for it if you don't have a piano player. So there is like one part in the piano part that if you don't use it, you would need to supplement it somewhere. The viola part is independent. This swings, which is also always a lovely thing to do with kids, teach swing feel. So let's give this a listen. It really is just a delightful classic pop sound. Here's that piano part that you can't do without. And now you could drop the piano. Love the plucked cello bass melody. With the resurgence of popularity of Mr. Rogers in the last few years, this capitalizes on that popularity, but it's a standalone classic all on its own. So that's Won't You Be My Neighbor, arranged by Larry Moore. Next up, Brian Balmage's You Are Amazing. I've got to say, Brian Balmage's one of my favorite string composers also for educational strings. This is a grade 2.5 to 3. It's in D major. It's up tempo. The time signatures changed, so I didn't write a time signature there. It does have an optional piano part. It really does sound like a soundtrack. It's very cinematic in nature. The changing time signatures keeps the challenge level up, and it keeps, you can't just drift off. You have to stay paying attention. It's a really strong, energetic, up-tempo piece. Lots of rhythmic interest. This one is on my list to buy this year. You Are Amazing, Brian Balmages. See how the ending goes. So some great energy, feel good piece. This is our last number of the session. It's Allegro Presto from Symphony No. 2. The composer is Joseph Boulogne, Chevalier de Saint-Georges. The arranger is Deborah Baker Monday. Now, this composer is a very little known 18th century composer from the West Indies. And for me, the attempts to decolonize the classroom are becoming more important to me. And so it's interesting for me to be able to put a composer in that has a history that is not purely, white European guy. So Joseph Boulogne was born in the West Indies to a slave owner, and his mother was a slave of the slave owner. And then, unfortunately, he did end up going to Europe and studying in Europe and becoming a European composer. So there's only just a little touch of that sort of decolonization, but it does offer something other than Bach, Mozart, and the Boys to put in front of your students. It's very classical sounding. It may as well be a Mozart rondo. Like if you're looking for a classical piece that isn't sort of one of the traditional white Western European composers, this offers just that slightly more diverse option in terms of the music you're putting in front of your students. So this is a grade 2.3 to 3, 2.5 to 3. It's in D major. It's an Allegro presto in 3/4. It really does work all of the great meaty things bowing wise and style wise that you would do with any other classical composer. But it does give you just a little bit of diversity in your composers. Interestingly, the Hamilton Philharmonic just released a Georges Bellone Chevalier de Saint-Georges piece this week on YouTube. Oh, good, they don't repeat. Like if I was listening to this cold, I would say it's Mozart. So thank you very much for spending some time with me today. Hopefully there are a couple or more titles in there that interest you, and they're all available through Long and McQuaid. So thank you for your time. Hopefully that was useful.